All right, traders. Hey, welcome on back for another fantastic edition of our weekly workshop Traders Talk here inside our live trading room. Great to see Nabil, Tom, Margaret. You got a few of us here just joining us. Bill, Grant, Leda, Prem Kumar, so Mark, Mekalinga. See a few of us just joining us here now today. So great to see all of us back here. Again, today's Monday. Finally, it's actually Monday. Off last Monday, of course, with Martin Luther King Day. We got our weekdays tripped up, but here we are. Actually, Monday. Today's January 26th, though. Great to have all of us back here inside our room. Of course, all of us back on social, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, etc. Wherever you may be residing out there on the internet streets here today at Cyber Trading U. YouTube and X/Twitter, namely, that's where we're located there, as well as Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, pretty much everywhere. But namely, at Cyber Trading U on X/Twitter, as well as YouTube there. Now, with that said, I mean, we got a lot to dig in here today, folks. A couple emails with questions that got sent in. We'll go over a couple of different day trades that happened earlier on today. Of course, we're going to go over the USAR, the rare earth precious metal stocks that, of course, exploded not just overnight, but across the last couple of weeks. We've been swing trading those stocks at least from the last week and a half ago, USAR namely, and that has been killing it. But to begin, let me even just go over the SPY. Anyone here on SPY calls or leaps, or anyone just trading the SPY, probably your best bang for the buck would just be doing the options. But anyone do like SPY calls or any of that stuff? Doesn't need to be 0 DTE. It could be next week, next month, leaps, etc. Bill, Tim, Armine, Bill C. Yes. Okay, cool. So I just want to go over one thing in terms of just trading the SPY. I would refer to the options market because it's just the easier trade in terms of liquidity and price. I mean, we always say don't trade the option until you learn how to trade the equity, the asset there first. It's the underlying move of the ticker, the equity, the quote unquote stock, this being an ETF, of course. But with that said, the options are less expensive. They trade great volume. So unless if you're really jacking up the volatility unnecessarily, you could still trade SPY calls very well within reason. Okay, well, the way that we do that is simply the same way that we would just trade a stock. If this was Amazon, the stock, and if you were trading Amazon calls, it would be the same strategy. But here's where I'll say, though, looking back across the last couple of months, last few months, we talked about this. And I know we talked about this because I made this exact graph for Traders Talk weeks ago. A few weeks ago, a month ago, we had talked about this where, we had a resistance back from late October, big drop, big correction. Then from there, going into mid-December, hey, these highs held, lower high, but it was pretty close, pretty tight within this area. So it's not one exact price level to the penny that's holding exactly as support resistance. It's more of an area. It's like kind of like a $1.50 area there between 688, 689 and change. All right, well, going into the beginning of January, we keep testing this resistance. You figure the more times that we keep seeing resistance get tested in a smaller sitting, we should at least feel better about that breakout. Think about that big move shortly after. And we were feeling pretty confident about the SPY making that move up to 700. And then we ended up having, like last week, at the end of last week, or 2 weeks ago now at this point, but from Friday the 16th, going into Martin Luther King, there was some news that came out, big gap down on the SPY from that point. I'll tell you, that was a little discouraging. I was a little discouraged by seeing that. It doesn't mean that I was feeling like bearish or we're going to just continue down, but you got to be careful, right? What if we do break this support? What if we do break a local lower low from there? We were holding higher lows, even with this gap down. The question would be, though, how fast do we go back up, right? So all of this is easy to say in hindsight right now, but we had a strong Wednesday. Not Tuesday, but Wednesday. We did really well with filling this gap again. And at least that can reinvigorate the thought of eventually seeing resistance flip into support. I'd move that over a bit now, right? Because you'd figure it could happen here. Figure it could happen here if it really wants to go. Had one big drop. And then from there, thankfully, we have recovered very well. Even from the end of last week, Friday, we held this as support. Now, we had a strong reaction today immediately, but I'm not 100% expecting like green up to 700. If we take a few days to pull back and hold this as support again, that's perfectly healthy. That's 100% healthy for me, because if this was such a big resistance, Of course, we all want that big continuated move up next, but at the minimum, you got to trust our levels. Even on this wick, this was a little dangerous at first where we sliced down. What was this? January 16th, January 14th. Well, we had a really strong recovery that afternoon, late morning, that afternoon. You know what? Let me just check that day out here quick because real quick, I don't know if I'm going to be perfect on this or not. I barely remember what I have to eat each morning for breakfast, let alone these charts each day. But I do know my reversal time. What time is reversal time, folks? You got Kevin here. You got John W. here. You got Steve here from earlier, one of our new students, Gerard and Dominic. Good afternoon to you over there in Germany. What time is reversal time? Dominic, I want you to answer in Germany time. Everyone, okay. Now, what time is reversal time? What do we got? 10:30. Absolutely. So, what would be interesting? Probably got to go back even more, I think. On that day, the 14th, where you had that crazy down wick, and just how fast did the markets react? This was the day. So we started to bounce at first going into 10:45, 11 o'clock at least, on the further end of that reversal period. We did come back down one more time, but we held support. We did at least hold at that point. We had moved back up going into the market close here. Maybe news came out at 3 o'clock. Whatever day this was, the 14th. But just goes to show, though, that day, even this one, created a very strong reaction, just knowing that support is trying to hold. So whatever news came out this Friday into Martin Luther King that spiked everything down again, and that was kind of a kick in you-know-what. But at least it's very comforting to see the reaction the day after. And then from there, today, just this nice update. But I'm sure that we're going to get pullbacks. I'm sure that we could see support develop a little bit more here over time. So for anyone that isn't in on like SPY calls yet, or looking to take a trade maybe with the Mag 7, just kind of overall market move up, it's possible we could just go up like this week. Don't get me wrong. But in the event that we drop, I would love to just get one more dip into this and then the move up to 700. All right. Real quick, also, today is a Monday. We normally don't figure today's a great trading day in terms of volatility wise, at least. Doesn't mean we can't have a green day. We're having a great day today. But is there something that's happening later this week that we should definitely be more hesitant of, wait a little bit more on to see at least what happens there, and then we'll try and react? Is there anything that's coming out this week, folks? Bingo. Fed meeting. And alongside that, we got like a ton of earnings coming out this week too. It's like the Super Bowl week for earnings. Don't forget that also. But we got the Fed meeting. So we're going to decide on the interest rates again. I mean, we've known this for a while, but not to go into the political stuff, guys, but like Trump and Powell, they have not been the best of friends over the years. And then heading into the end of last year, we definitely knew that. And then now, I mean, they're trying to get him out, and how soon is he going to resign? There's a lot of that that's still looming, and who knows what might be said in the Fed meeting, right? Like, you never know what might be said. If something is said about him resigning, or maybe him staying on board, or if Trump makes a comment there afterwards, watch, something will happen. And then you'll see a Trump post on Truth Social, too late Jerome Powell, blah, blah, blah. It's kind of a funny nickname, but needless to be said, it creates some volatility within the markets. And with that, I mean, we might see a little bit of a pullback after the Fed announcement's made, and then the real move up after. Sam says the skinny is no change this meeting, but we will see. Yeah, so you might hear that, and we do hear that, but whenever Powell makes his remarks, that's the thing that will shock the market intraday-wise on the 1 minute, 5 minute chart. So at least after the Fed announcements made at 2 o'clock, you got to wait till 2:30. I got a little competition there for the afternoon meeting. I'll be on at 2:30 scanning the market for the afternoon, and we have Powell on giving his remarks. And just to say there that whatever he says is going to take precedence. That's going to be the real move within the market. But this is what I'm looking for. Hopefully we get it. Right place, wrong time, maybe like a few weeks ago, a couple weeks ago. We can only be wrong so many times before we're right. I mean, with direction, we should get this to flip. So I feel pretty good about that. That's all. All right. Now, with that, if you have any questions in relation to the SPY, at least just let me know. Of course, some larger cap stocks, Amazon trade at least here. It's been pretty healthy for a little while. I think maybe a potential nail in a coffin would be that Kramer said yesterday on X to buy Amazon. So we'll see how fast that goes up or down. More or less, though, it has resistance around this 242. If it could flip that into support, that would be great to see. Now, what I do want to get to at least is the USAR because I can not go off on a tangent, but we can keep going through a lot of good stuff here, and then before you know it, it's the end of the workshop. So I want to go into the USAR immediately here from this point and just mention. Well, of course, we had such a big move up from this area. We had talked about this all inside our trading room. This is basically what got Fausto, if not in the trade, then if he was already in, then he was in the driver's seat at this point. We had resistance back from March of last year, from August of last year, late September. This is as easy on the eyes as you could ask for, right? And to have this smash resistance and fly, well, I'd figure that resistance could flip into support and then we can see it go up more. Well, unfortunately, that didn't happen, at least. It held support for a few days, but it wasn't bouncing. It was, almost like 8 or 9 red candles out of 10 here in the sequence. So, the sellers were continuing to hit down. They smashed below this. All right, well, broken support now turns back into resistance. So it's not surprising that that happened. But the more that it can keep knocking on that door, then we're looking for that move. So it's essentially the same thing as the SPY chart, this just being a lot more volatile in terms of an asset sector, a stock here that could be very heavily shorted. I mean, for any people that are trying to short this thing now, I wish you well, but they got blown out the water here by the time this broke above 19 and 20. So, this became an incredible swing trade from last week for that reason alone, right? No one here should ever expect certain news to come out at all. And even if you're confident in news eventually coming out, it's tough to predict the exact day, week, month, right? So, for instance, if you were so bullish on the rare earth precious metal stocks that you had a good feel that the White House would make a big investment in them, all right, you can't predict the date though, right? So if you're trying to do options or trying to do a swing trade based on potential speculative news, maybe it works out, but you have no idea when in terms of the time. Might be days, weeks, months, like I just said. But that is where, though, that Friday night, Saturday morning, I think it was, news came out. Trump announced, or basically the White House announced, they're going to do a $1.6 billion investment into USAR. I thought it was also the other rare earth, group, as a whole group, but I think now it's just the USAR specifically. So, this had a big overnight reaction. It was up like 20-25% overnight. Now, here's the thing, though. This is what Fausto stresses all the time, mainly in the phase 3 course, the advanced class that we provide here at CTU. But just in our trading room, we'll say it on and off as well. You don't want a stock to go up too fast as a swing trade, at least. So this was already popping going into the end of the week from that level, that 19. It was already up 25% from there. But then you're telling me, more news comes out at the White House, big investment. So the shorts are dead in the water there, right? Because if they didn't cover going into the weekend, then they're going to get destroyed by the time the pre-market opens up. Their hope is to see the stock come back down at any point. But even then, by the time the market opens up, if the stock is at $30 or $32 and if their margin call is at 27, they're dead in the water immediately. So this type of trade could continue to see more shorts get squeezed out. But I would at least expect to see a good chunk of that gap get filled. And that's what happened, at least by the time the market opened up. It was a pop at first, then a pullback. Now, this is where, though, it's like you can't judge perfectly if the gap's going to get fully filled today, tomorrow, this week, etc. From Friday, that is. That was at 24 and change. 24.77 it closed Friday afternoon at. No guarantee it fills that full gap at all, let alone, maybe this week, today, whatever it is. You could see a nice dip down, but that is where, though, you have to go into Bookmap and ask, okay, where do we have those big orders? And then from there, where do we have any volume and levels from pre-market, right? So we actually covered this a decent amount in our phase 2 course just earlier today. I would say that on this trade, it didn't pull back down to 25, which was the larger support level, at least today. but that's only mere pennies above Friday's closing price. So that's pretty deep down there. So this is just where you don't want to try and catch a falling knife because it's very possible it could drop down a little bit more. Now, granted, reversal time 10:30. This is what pays the bills here. So exactly at 10:30, maybe 2-3 minutes after the gun, right at 10:32, 10:33, bounce. Now that doesn't mean for us to just jump in the trade immediately, but this is where we could begin to ask, okay, well, what if the stock makes higher lows, right? And if the stock could show signs of life at least throughout the day, late morning or even later on coming up, mid afternoon, even, this isn't fully out of the weeds just yet, by the way, but it did build a higher low. Now, at least here, what it now needs to do for us going into the afternoon, we had a little support that got broken through at 28. Support should flip into resistance. Well, it didn't. It really did not flip into resistance one bit. It actually just bounced off at 28 again right as we started this workshop. So I will say, at least as long as this holds over 28, then I'm looking to try and see this move up more today. Now, if this breaks back below 28 later on today, then I could see this dropping off a little bit further, maybe down towards the low here, or otherwise even lower, down to the 25. But now at this stage, since we do have a higher low on the intraday graph right now, the question would be, okay, well, where did we have previous support? Let's make sure it doesn't break below that again. And that's where we see 28 right now, right? So actually, the fact it didn't even kiss 28, it just held maybe mere pennies above it. That's actually a better sign than you probably think right now. That's actually pretty good, at least for the time being. So there's a good chance this actually squeezes up even higher sooner than later. How about this real quick for our students here inside our live trading room, namely, you probably are going to be more privy to answer this question. Just give me an approximation. Around what price do we see the big spike of volume on the far right side column? On the far right side, that column on the far right that says CVP. Where do we have that big spike of volume? All of us saying there, 2880. Absolutely. Absolutely. Right around 2880. Perfect. Now, it seems like that was a little resistance. Like that was a miniature resistance, I guess, right? I say miniature because this yellow orange is not as large as bold red as what we have down here. So, and certainly not as bold red or significant as opposed to what's here. So, it's possible this could try and run coming up, but sooner than later, we'd like to see that happen, right? The longer it takes, then more likely we're going to see this eventually pull back and come back down to 28, let alone much lower, perhaps even in due time. So from this stage now, the fact that it already dipped down to 28, didn't even kiss it, but that's actually a great sign. Like if this wants to go up higher sooner, I think it has a green light, just needs to kind of stay over this area. And then in the coming minutes, now where do we have a resistance here? Where do we have our real resistance on the heat map now? On the heat map window itself there. Yeah, 30. So at least if it can keep with higher lows, and certainly if it can hold over this thing better, then there is a chance for a better move up towards 30. If it can't do that, or if it takes longer over time for that to materialize, then the odds of this coming back down to the 28 level increase, if not lower. If not lower. Uday saying orange within green on CVP. What does it mean? More buying than selling? I'm not sure what you mean there, Uday. Are you referring to this right here where I have my cursor? It says yes. Okay. It just shows the amount of buying and the amount of selling. So all I personally care about in this picture is just the overall size of the volume bars, red plus green. So anytime I ask like, hey, what's the big spike of volume on the far right, I'm looking for everyone to answer this 2880. Now, like from there, what's more buying or selling? You can kind of like compare the red versus the green, kind of dividing it up there with my cursor. I would probably say there's more buying, probably more green there, just looking at the difference there between the two. All right, but let me know if you have any questions, folks. Overall, for such a big move that we had up from last week, remember Fausto is driving this boat right up here on this trade. I mean, if he wasn't in from even a lower price around like 15, 16, then he showed it in the morning meeting. He showed his full entry there. So you can go back on that recording and see his position manager, everything in full. But either way, at the bare minimum, if you missed it from here, or if you didn't get in when he got in at these prices, perhaps, then at the minimum, by the time it breaks this resistance, you should be jumping in. I mean, that looks as easy on the eyes as any. So the hope is to see it at least stay above it. Now, of course, to get the reaction that we had from the end of last week, incredible. That's everything that we hope for, but nothing that we should expect on every trade. If that happens, that's more of a gift. So the fact that we did have this react so well, so fast off that area, it's perfect, awesome. It's everything we hope for. But then to have the news out on top, this thing is up too much, too fast. It's probably going to take time to consolidate. Just look what happened the last time it went parabolic, right? Didn't consolidate for too long before it came back down. So if this wants to make a stronger move over time, then I just feel like it's going to, pull back down, I'm sure, but likely consolidate. And that will take days and weeks for that to materialize. From Nabil saying, but the problem I don't understand, Fausto says never hold a stock overnight. He does say that. That is a fair point. Now, to go over the difference, though, and to mention, how about this? I'm not going to make you wait at least till Friday in the bill. I'm going to answer this at least, Spark noted at least here, Spark noted edition here. But coming up Friday, the end of this week, I'm going to be doing our phase 2 stock course. That's where we're going to continue to go through these classes here, lessons 3 and 4, specifically lessons 3 and 4. So day trading versus swing trading, I have a full 60-minute class exactly going over that topic. Now, to give you the long story short there, it is to say you don't want to swing trade small cap stocks. You typically don't. And you definitely don't want to swing trade stocks that are on downtrends. Who's winning the battle when a stock is trending down? When a stock is making lower highs and lower lows, who's winning that battle? Sellers. Right? So, I got chatted this maybe it was maybe almost 2 weeks ago on this, and I went over it with them on the side. But just to mention it for everyone here once more, I can't stress enough. Out of 100 trades, how many trades do I take that are on a stock that's just trending down, down, down as far as a swing? Maybe 1% out of the time, 1 out of 100. You want to know what that 1 out of 100 was so far this year or over the last year? It was Figma, right? Remember Fig? And this was at least an exception because of a pattern that I saw on the order book. But I was stressing it from the second I got in. I'm like, guys and gals, this is not a good swing trade. This chart is not something I want to really focus in on typically. It was much more speculative. Now, the pattern I saw on Bookmap was jaw-dropping, and I waited for this drop to happen from months prior. I was waiting for this thing from October. So it is the 1 out of 100, maybe even 1 out of 200, right? I don't have those statistics to give you. But it is just to say, I'm not traditionally taking trades on stocks that look like this. Because over time, if it's only going to make lower highs, then it's a waste of my time after, or otherwise it's just going to pull back more. A stock like CRWV here, if we think long-term, let's say off their IPO date, perhaps, they were not looking good back at the end of this year. They broke a lower low, right? They broke a pretty decent lower low. Fix that up better, but whatever. More or less, once it gets back over that price, if it could stay back over that price, then there's the thought of this becoming a potential swing again. So this took time to build out, and it became a decent entry here if you got this from mid-January here. But it was not a great swing trade until that point, and that's because it broke a lower low going into November. So if that happens, support should flip into resistance. I'd imagine that would take time, right? So going back to Fig is this a great swing trade here? No, not at all right now. Not one bit. I mean, it's historically been trending down. At no point has this made an actual higher high. Even after I was off to a good start on my trade here, it never like made a higher high. It tried, but no cigar, and then lower highs after. So for me, I have no business on this trade, at least until it can reclaim that area. All right, then we'll talk. Then we'll talk. But to have that broken as support, well, I'm going to expect that support to flip into resistance, and that likely will take time, right? So, that's where ultimately I want to focus on stocks that have stronger trends historically as a swing trade in the bill. Something like IBRX. Hey, remember this? Should never forget it. A lot of us, I think, should still be in this trade with me. I'm in on this trade from $3 still. So it is just to say that this is not typically something I would swing trade, right? It's a small cap stock, let alone a small cap stock that historically has been trending down. Now, when the news came out, I started this off as a day trade. And when the stock popped pretty well by the end of the day that day, I said, okay, it's actually starting to make a nice little higher high on the daily chart above like at least these wicks, there's a chance, right? Now, if this didn't make as big of a move, then at the minimum, it needs to hold over those lines as support. And if it doesn't do that, I'm getting out. But again, this is not something I would normally swing trade. The fact that this had popped so well during my day trade, I actually was able to turn this into a swing trade for that reason. And obviously the next morning when it gapped up much higher, it's like, that you're in the driver's seat once you're getting that squeeze at least overnight. Those gaps, of course, I felt great the next morning. So I felt like I was in the driver's seat, and I say, okay, maybe I'll take a quarter of my trade out at some point in time, but now I could try and manage this day over day better. And if it drops, then I'm aware of the consequences, right? This is some small cap. I don't want to say no name stock because I got a lot of new followers on Twitter that are, a big fan of this company, and I am too. But I don't think too many people know about this company comparative to, NVIDIA or like Palantir, right? So it's just to say at least that, hey, if bad news comes out and if they do a common stock offering and this just tanks one random day, hey, I'm aware of those consequences, right? We have to be for trying to take a swing trade on something that doesn't necessarily have such a healthy graph. Now, we could say that for any sort of graph, healthy graph, unhealthy graph, because right now we're in the Super Bowl week of earnings, right? Let me try and see if I can get this picture back up. I know we had posted it a lot earlier today, just with the earnings calendar coming out. So give me a moment. We had mentioned this earlier in the morning here, just a bunch of different companies coming out today and this whole week. So I lost my spot. Give me a sec here. We had posted this picture much earlier on this morning. So I'm just going to try and scroll up here if I can. Here we go. Check this out. This is all the earnings for this week. United Healthcare, Boeing, GM, UPS, RTX, AAL. And guys, that's just Tuesday morning. That's just tomorrow morning. Are you kidding me? We got Microsoft, Meta, Tesla on Wednesday afternoon. We got, you name it, it's on here pretty much, right? Waste Management is a huge company. That's a pretty important earnings announcement coming out too. So even something like that, Chevron, coming out with all the different oil stuff going on recently. So, between that and like Venezuela stuff too. SoFi, Friday morning, that is, where you normally don't have good earnings. There's SoFi on Friday. This is just where I'll say that if any of those companies report bad news, bad earnings, and you're holding on to a swing trade, of course, it's going to gap down. And unfortunately, you're going to get burned a bit by that. So that type of event could happen for any stock. It could be NVIDIA, it could be IBRX, but something like this, given that it's not exactly as healthy of a graph to begin with, well, what happens when the buyers lose their part of the momentum? Who starts taking over then? A lot of us answered that question just earlier. Uday, Nabil, Margaret, Uma, the sellers. So that's just where you got to be careful. That's all. So more or less in the bill, I try not to swing trade the small caps really too often at all, and definitely 99 out of 100, if not 99 and a half out of 100, try and focus on stocks that have healthy long-term graphs, higher lows, higher highs, long term. All right, and just to get my stuff in one more time, we're going to be going over that Friday this week, folks. Keep in mind the Phase 1 stock course. We're going to continue later on today, 3 o'clock Eastern will be our next literal class, lesson 2. But otherwise, day trading versus swing trading on Friday. All right, real quick, folks, let me get to my emails here. Get to my emails just for a moment. Okay, so I'm going to be chatting with a student coming up, I think coming up just right after Traders Talk in a coaching session. So just going to be working with them privately. And, more or less, they just said on the side, and unnamed obviously, but they just mentioned, they mainly just trade really just two tickers, just the SPX and Amazon. So S&P 500 index itself, not the SPY, and AMZN, right? It says that there are other longer term trades in the accounts, but the active trades are the two listed. My Amazon trading is what generated my interest in CTU, primarily in the bookmap information and support. So, I covered the SPY, right? I've just covered that to begin Traders Talk here, more or less just using simple, good old charting for that. Now, with SPX and with SPY, it's not going to be as easy to use bookmap to plot levels. You could still do it. You could still do it. It's doable, just not as easy. ETFs in general are not going to have as easy to see levels compared to the stock. So, this little rugged, a little tough, right? A lot of algo trading on the SPY. You would figure even at a price like 700, well, there is at least some shares there. 6,000 shares. I guess that's an iceberg. That's something. There's something right here at 706 and 45 cents. That's kind of an odd price. And that seems like it's been out there for a bit. So that possibly is a level to watch. But you got to manipulate bookmap here to at least see that more vividly. If you really are just focused around where the stock is trading at here, it's tough. You can't make any use of this stuff here. None. Zero. So you do have to manipulate it a little bit there. But I want to go into Amazon. I want to go into Amazon just a small amount, and then I'm going to be working with the student in particular in coaching coming on up. So we'll have a lot more time to go over these trades then privately one-on-one. But on this trade, on the Amazon at least, two things big time stand out to me here. I would say the first thing is just your chart levels. Much like the SPY, you had long-term resistance, just roughly around 236 and change. And then basically this little peak here, which was the all-time high here for a while, February of last year. I have this line, though, the 236 and change, because a number of wicks here topped off pretty tightly, pretty well. So there's a good chance that that could try and flip into a good support also. But namely that 243-ish area back from early 25, that is going to be the resistance that we need to keep seeing getting tested, poked at over time if we're looking for a much stronger move up. Now, with that said, that's just the first of two things, or first of maybe two or three things, whatever I said, that I'm very much focused on here, the chart levels. Otherwise, though, what I'll focus on is what the heck happens here? What the heck happened on that day? Because you have almost 50% more volume traded on this one day compared to the day before, the day after it. And even those two candles are actually pretty decent sized volume bars compared to the other days before and after that. So I'm like, what the heck happened here on October 31st? Right? I don't think that was a triple witching, quadruple witching thing, right? Because that's normally the third Friday. You're thinking about the monthlies. Now, it could be maybe quarterly expiration. Who knows? But just, hey, on October 31st, we had massive volume getting filled here. Let me take a look actually, because what we could try and do is base it off the closing price of this candle. And I just covered part of that in the phase two course earlier on today. This is where I'll kind of emphasize more the open and the close prices for a lot of these candles. Granted, this is just a daily chart. So each candle represents just one day, right? So it's to say that there's probably just a lot of volume traded at the market close on this one day. On this one day. Well, what day is this again? October 31st? Well, at the bare minimum, at least it's maybe not an options expiration thing. It's not quadruple witching, triple witching, whatever. But it's the end of the monthly candle. October 31st is not just the end of any one day, like you see here. It's actually the end of the October monthly candle. So with that, it ended up making a pretty strong reaction, I think, by the time the market closed there. Also, that's probably, it might also be the weekly close too. Check this. This is actually pretty unique then. Yeah, this was actually the weekly close price along with a monthly. October 31st. Check that. That's pretty cool. So what price is that? 244 and some change. I mean, it's still underneath, obviously, that today. It's well below it, but just I would say that would be a very unique level to focus on for potential resistance flipping into support. Right now, I'd say otherwise, it's just kind of more within this area. I need to see something happen here on Amazon if I'm looking to take a trade from these prices. So let's say tomorrow, let's say Wednesday, let's say the Fed announcement's not good and it drops, then ideally, perhaps this could try and flip into a support of sorts. But that's where I need to incorporate bookmap. That's where I then need to say, okay, is there any sort of iceberg on the bid around those prices that potentially could be support? Well, at least today, at least live right now, if we're talking about this here, yeah, right at 235.50. I mean, 55,000. So it's not exactly at that price to the penny, but it's not too far off from it. Tell me there's like a pretty big iceberg order, maybe about like 60, 70 cents out from where you have a decent chart level. All right, so there might be something here. If this could pull back tomorrow into Wednesday, Fed announcement, maybe not so great, or maybe Powell just says the wrong things. And, if Amazon can pull back a bit, would love to try and see if we can get the flipping of that into support, this area here. Between the chart area of resistance that you would hope to see flip, but then also this iceberg. I can only go back so far. This is just from 11 o'clock in the morning. So it's at least been out there for an hour and 40 minutes. I'm sure it's been out there way longer, but otherwise, this is your largest order on the bid, at least until 225. Is that what you're telling me? This is your largest order on the bid for another 11 points, 10 points. Yeah, I'm going to give this a lot of respect here, guys. I'm going to give this a lot of respect. So on an Amazon trade, let's see what happens later on this week. Potentially, we could see the flipping of this into support, then back up, break new high. That would be interesting. All right. And then again, for my student that emailed me that their intent was to actually have that more for the coaching. I just wanted to give them extra time, even just with going over their trades here. And coming up, I'll have the chance to work with them privately. But let me go through another email quickly that came in. This was from this morning. So from Armand. And this was just a quick question we'll go through here for Traders Talk. Can you please just go over how to select the stocks to watch for the morning and afternoon trading? Absolutely. And to go there, I will just say, we go over that in the phase one curriculum. We have a full class that we've done for many. I mean, it's part of our entire strategy. So we'd be crazy to not teach it at any point over Fausto's time as a teacher, let alone mine. So, in phase one, we have a full 60-minute class on scanning the markets. That's where we'll show gainers list, losers list, most active. It's a full 60-minute class. I say this to other traders, that are not Armand, who has the class, and Otherwise, if you're looking to learn more, just remember we have full time in our curriculum to provide attention to these topics. Now, Spark noted answer here. So for the morning, what do I focus on? Well, the gainers list. For a stock going up, 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 well, the buyers, I'm assuming, are in control. So if there's a stock that's up fairly big on the morning, then it's likely on the top of the gainers list or near the upper echelon of the gainers list. And my thought process is you're probably going to have a lot of people run their scanners coming up and they'll see that like, wow, that's a big, why is that up so much? Oh my God, I'm into that. I want to see if I could jump in on that, see if it can go up more. That's the chain reaction that we hope to see, at least by following stocks that are on the gainers list early in the morning. You hear me kind of refer to some stocks as the shiny object in the room. Certainly, if it's got a big spread, certainly if it's not so inexpensive, but if it's got a big spread and very thin orders out there on the order book, then I probably not want to trade that stock. There's probably just easier fish out there in the ocean for me to try and catch. Now, with that said, hey, this was up big. It doesn't have a crazy spread. So something like this is a little bit more tradable, at least, as long as the spread is still tight. Now, the question begs, though, okay, well, it's going up. And, just like Josh says in class all the time, when a stock is going up, the buyers are winning the battle. Yeah, but the question then begs, at what price are the buyers winning the battle from? And that's the next step there. So, Armand, we just covered that in the phase 2 course, actually, also just earlier this morning, because we did talk about preparing to trade. So scanning comes first. We build up our watch lists. We know what stocks we at least like and don't like. But then the next step is for the stocks we do like, then we got a game plan. We got to prepare to trade those. So if you're asking more or less about like the scanning part and what stocks do we put on the watch list part, where am I? Here. So, okay. So the last time I ran this scan here is at 8:47 in the morning. That was the last time I ran this thing, actually. I used Benzinga Pro. I'm looking at the trading room, but hey, this is at least a pretty realistic view of the pre-market. 8:47 in the morning. Just think of it that way. So a stock like BATL, it was up 347% at that point. Could it go up more? Yeah. But notice that Fausto did not put that stock at least number one or on the top of the gainers list. Was it on the list? Yeah. Was it near the bottom of the list? Yeah. Probably because he thought it was up too much already. Probably because although stocks could go up, 500%, 1,000%, most stocks don't. So, for this stock to be holding here so nicely, okay, there's a chance it could pop up and break new highs and go. But if it doesn't, game over, right? BNAI, same exact situation. This was not on the top of the gainers list. It was on the bottom of the game. It wasn't on the top of the watch list. It was on the top of the gainers list here, but it was not on the top of our watch list going into the open. It was up so much from Friday already that it's very likely that this is overextended to begin with. So no surprise it dropped. But stocks that are on the gainers list, the hope is at least if it does have good trend, maybe if it's not up, God knows how much percent already, there's a chance for the stock to make a better move. So we use the gainers list first. We scan around. We kind of say, okay, what stocks are on this gainers side that have good trend, good liquidity, etc., and we go from there. The stock Goro was on the gainers list this morning. It was a stock that we had talked about Friday. One of our students, pretty well versed in silver and gold miners, George, and I know he was a big fan of this, calling this one out Friday morning. I don't expect you to remember that. I just got no life, so it's easier for me to. No, but seriously, at least I remember he had called that out. It's a great trade. So it was on the gainers list this morning. Didn't really make the big move right out the gate at 9:30, but hey, if we're focused on stocks for the afternoon session, perhaps this doesn't look so bad right now. So the fact that this is going back up at least here, and it's likely still going to be on the gainers list right here. Okay, what's the trend? Well, certainly the last couple hours going up. From the last couple of days, certainly going up. So the buyers are definitely in control here. Now the question would then beg, where have they been in control from? And what's the next price they need to be in control of? Right? Sam saying, could that be a Cyber Monday going back to that October 31st? I don't think so. No, that was October 31st. So Black Friday is, or Cyber Monday is like the very end of November, right? Here we go. So just want to give a shout out to my student. I'll be, just one of my, coaching students I'm working with this week, Brad sent over a bunch of trades for our session tomorrow. So I just want to make a note for any of my students here that are looking to work with me one-on-one privately. Please do what Brad just did. Brad didn't send in a question for Traders Talk. I'm just seeing this live in my inbox right now, Brad. Send over a bunch of trades that we'll go over tomorrow in our session. Absolutely, Brad. Looking forward to it. But that goes for all of our students here. If you have coaching with me this week, if you're looking to get on my calendar for this week, this month coming up, definitely do yourself a favor and send over those trades. The morning of the session, the night before the session. So really appreciate that, Brad. Thank you. All right. Always got to check junk too, just in case if I ever run into some like Outlook issue. But I don't see any emails landing into junk here today, folks. So you know what? We might be wrapping up at least for the time being. Sam saying I was talking to Amazon. Yeah. No, the Amazon one. That was the one that had the big spike on. That was the October 31st, right? That was pretty unique though. Daily candle, the weekly candle, and the monthly. So that probably plays in part with resistance around that 244. So all right, so folks, we're going to wrap up at least for the time being. So if you have any other questions, feel more than free. In our trading room, you got direct access to me. I'm talking about direct access trading platforms. Grant, Bill, Armine, Sam, Nabil, George. You got Leda here, Glenn here, Roseanne here, Deborah here. You got direct access to myself, Fausto, Rich as well. He'll be able to help you out with tech stuff too. But send over any questions via private chat. You can, by all means, send over a quick private chat message. Takes us all of about 30 seconds, a minute to write you back. And then, be sure to, stay here. Otherwise, we're going to come back later on this afternoon for 2:30 Eastern for our afternoon meeting. For all of us on social media, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, Twitter, etc. Hey, popping up lower left. If you're not subscribed or followed, be a friend and tell a friend and tell a friend's friend that we got a YouTube channel over here at Cyber Trading U. We teach all of our traders how to follow the big orders and also how to align that with the charts that we're seeing. So, this might be easy to say kind of after the fact, but that USAR swing trade, like taking candy from a kid, that resistance was clean as a whistle. So to see that break out at the end of last week, not surprising. To have the news that came out over this weekend, yeah, that is kind of surprising, but that's like the cherry on top. This has been incredible. So if you're looking to join us directly inside our live trading room, well, certainly we would want you to follow and subscribe to our YouTube channel, X Twitter account right there. But go right down to the link scrolling down on the bottom. They keep making this thing fast. Whew, right down there. Slowed it down for you. But if you wanted to join us directly inside our live trading room, go right down below there, the scrolling blue banner, ctu.co/trial. And then, again, you'll get the full-fledged commentary, audio broadcasts all throughout the day directly inside our trading room. All right, folks. But again, we'll be back for our next overall broadcast at 2:30 here, heading into the afternoon meeting. Take care.